It is numbers day, and I noticed that Bradford, you have a bright, cheery disposition. You don't seem to be sad. You're not in mourning or anything. So the numbers. I saw that your partner in crime suggested not so bad, really. So
Yeah, yeah, Matt Smith, we're talking about the Tesla production and delivery report. It was below Wall Street for on the cars, but they sold more cars than they produced. That'll be good for cash flow. Um,
a lot
and
more cars than they produced.
yeah, they also delivered 11 gigawatt hours on energy storage. So they set a record quarter for that. And that's without the help of Giga Shanghai, really. Um,
Yes.
or Mega Factory Shanghai is what
Mega
I should
Factory, please. You invented the name. Come on, you got to hang in there with it. I use it every single time to try
Yeah.
to help you with your moniker there. Yeah.
And I should note I have the goofy background because I'm at the Mouse House. I'm in Orlando on a little vacation, so that's also put me in a good mood. But yeah, it's good to see the strong energy storage numbers. I do think the delivery numbers were a little low, so I'm curious what Tesla is seeing behind the scenes. I don't know if we're all ever fully find out like the puts and takes of the delivery numbers. The analysts really don't ask about that, but I think they're setting up for a strong year this year. We should be seeing an upgraded Model Y soon.
Like
Rumors are
yesterday, like
yeah.
yesterday.
Rumors are that production is strong in China,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm curious how soon that rolls out
Because where are
to
they putting them?
Fremont.
If they made
Yeah,
2,400 of them today, where do they put those 2,400 vehicles?
yeah,
Well,
yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just to say, if we could talk about the energy storage part, because I think this is another one of those examples where the that we retail investors and those of us who dig deep have a huge arbitrage, knowledge arbitrage compared to Wall Street. So I would say, you obviously are a lead analyst in this area, the mega factories. I also did a lot of the work on the TAM side, on the, where these things will, why there's such a massive TAM. But
Mhm.
most on Wall Street, I would say, have zero understanding about the importance of these products, about the potential, the fact that every single one of these factories that we build that has 40 megawatt hours of capacity is the equivalent of 300,000 of the Model Q cars that everybody's so excited about in terms of profits, and maybe more than that. Um, so, uh, no analyst that I know of is really covering the energy side. Do you know of any analyst that makes that their business to cover the energy side?
Yeah, Wall Street's barely starting to mention that the mega packs in their reports. And it's becoming a real big business for them. You were curious how high the margins end up going. We saw, serious improvement in margins from Q3, where the deliveries were lower than Q2. So you'd expect that margins would be worse on the energy side, but they were better.
Yes.
And for Q4, there was a huge beat in growth there. So 11 gigawatt hours versus 7 in Q3. I'm really interested to see where margins shake out there. It's their highest margin area of their business for
Exactly.
Tesla. Besides their software, obviously, their full self-driving software is
Right.
a
Very high.
very high margin for them.
Yeah, so it's not hard to do this math, and I don't understand why the street can't do the math. 40 gigawatt hours produces 10,000 of these beasts. 10,000 of these beasts is roughly 10 million in sales. They're roughly $1 million. Well, probably on an average, maybe a little under $1 million in sales now per unit. if you take a
Ten
look at,
thousand would be, yeah, 10 billion. Yeah.
yeah, so it's not hard to do the math. It's really, just add zeros and take away zeros. It's pretty simple to do. And that, which sometimes is where I do my worst work, is power of 10, but that's okay. We won't talk about that right now. So, but the way I figure it here, the miss on the cars was maybe about 800 million in sales at the most 20% margins.
Right.
The beat on the energy was around 1.2 billion and might be as much as 30% margins.
Right.
So this is a much bigger beat than it was a miss. But the street has no clue. I mean, they really are clueless about the energy business.
Right. I guess where I'd be a little uncertain with the give and take there is I'm not sure what the street was expecting on the energy side.
But would they have been expecting any more than 9? I don't think so.
Yeah, I would think they'd be expecting about 9. So it did, you know, 2 billion, or not 2 billion,
Two
200.
gigawatt hours more than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that is easy to figure out is that we know that all things being equal, they should be making 10,000 of these a year in each plant. And yes, the bookkeeping is wonky and weird, and it's going to take longer to have it actually show up on the balance sheet, whatnot,
Mhm.
the P&L, not just the balance sheet.
Right.
So, but at the end of the day, you can smooth it. It's eventually going to be,
Yeah, it'll hit the bottom line. It'll hit
it'll
profit.
eventually be
Yeah.
there. So you just because you can't see it yet doesn't mean you don't know that it's been deployed, it's sitting someplace, and at some point that will smooth out. Over time, you get the second location in, you get lots and lots of these per year, it'll smooth out. So the P&L will be smoother. But in the meantime, if you have half a brain, all you have to do is say, well, eventually that's all going to hit the bottom line.
Yeah, and Tesla does disclose their deferred revenues on the energy storage side. So they disclose, how much revenues that they haven't yet collected, and they disclose a rough schedule for it. So revenues that will be collected in the next 12 months versus further out. So they do disclose that. And one thing we did learn from Tesla investor relations, back before the third quarter, was that the margin on the deferred revenue is about the same as what they're showing on their earnings report. So whether it's 25% or 30% or more than that, um, that that's what you should expect from that deferred revenue once Tesla is able to recognize it. So when Tesla says we deployed 11 gigawatt hours this quarter, that means it's on the site, wherever it's going to be used, but they may not be able to fully recognize all the revenues from that. So it's a little tricky with math, and luckily I have Matthew Smith to
Help
help
you
out
out.
with that, and we project a schedule for when things get recognized and all that. Yeah, I'm curious to see where margins go from here. And again, we have trouble seeing, like, where the cost is in these mega packs.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Because a lot of it's from batteries. Maybe the power electronics is a little more expensive, but I have a hard time seeing how these cost more than like 500,000 for Tesla to make each. And I think they're still going for like 850.
Right.
So the margins should be higher than 30%. And yeah, so I'm curious to see where it goes from here.
All right. So that's a place where we have some great arbitrage and where eventually it should be hitting the bottom line. If anybody cares in 18 months when robotaxis and Optimus are part of the mix. But anyway, I made the argument earlier today that the Trump bump was justified, but maybe the $100 or $300 billion in market cap was a little exuberant. And that maybe a little bit of what we've seen over the last 5 days of the sell-off is really maybe normalizing. The Trump bump is worth something. His, Elon's being in the middle of all of that, being right there, and the ability to maybe help it to move the robotaxi thing forward, all of that's worth something, but maybe not $300 billion of market cap. What do you think about that argument?
Yeah, so I think the move to like 340 a share was justified by the election and all that, but that the move beyond that was justified a lot by how good version 13 is and Tesla bulls seeing that, and we got some verification. And it's early and it's few people, but a version 12.6 came out for AI 3 cars. So that's hardware 3, and it's so good that people are giving hardware 3 cars their respect and calling them AI 3 cars now.
I see.
Um,
Okay.
so a further move higher from 340, I believe is justified. But we did see something recently I do want to share with you. And I'll share that quickly is the increase in use of margin, and this is just across the board, not necessarily Tesla,
Uh-huh.
where um, the margin statistics and numbers of billions, um, it's reached the peak in 2021. So it hit a peak in November, and this is before the growth stocks really got hit. It's even before the Fed started lowering rates, um, where you had all this money flow into stock options, and we see that money's flowed into margin. I think more people are using options, so we're seeing a high use of levered products as well, where people are putting money into the Tesla 2X ETF, or they're putting it into the MicroStrategy 2X ETF, or some kind of Bitcoin levered product. So that's hitting a peak, and I think that's a bit troublesome. It could continue to go more. So like probably inflation adjusted, it could go a little higher. But it's a bit troubling to see that use of margin come all the way back to where it was in 2021.
Isn't that kind of what you expect when the market gets exuberant? When you have an underlying reason, which is the Trump administration coming into power, you have this kind of enthusiasm, this optimism that's kind of everywhere right now. I mean, everywhere from business owners, man on the street, everybody feels more confident right now about what's going to happen in the future. Even if Elon Musk has said, "Hey, be careful, there might be a little pain to get to the good days." But I think most people can see through that to the potentiality. They're watching. Some of them are watching what's happening in Argentina and thinking, "Yeah, that could be us."
Yeah.
So when you have that kind of enthusiasm, though, in your experience as a financial advisor, isn't that when people are more inclined to go out and borrow a little bit in order to take advantage?
Yeah, I definitely see that people are tempted to do that for sure. Um, we generally try to hold people back when they get a little extra excited by that, but there's limits to how much we can, and um, generally I'm excited for the next couple of years. Version 13 is great. I think Tesla is very close to solving self-driving in a resolute and meaningful way that they'll be able to um, commercialize, unlike Google.
Right, right, right,
They commercialized Waymo, but it's not profitable. It doesn't work
right,
uh, as far as we know and understand.
right.
Um, so Tesla looks to have a real deal on their hands with autonomy. And in a year or so, we're going to be talking more about Optimus, and it's going to be really interesting to see where they compare to like all the Chinese robot makers.
I don't know if I can talk any more about Optimus than I already talk. It's just too exciting. But
Mm.
there is a certain element to it. It was interesting. Tom Narayan was on CNBC today, and he said, "Yeah, that Optimus thing, it could become a real product once it hits consumers." And I'm thinking, this is somebody who's never worked in a factory. This is somebody who's never worked in a distribution center. The opportunity in the commercial space is probably bigger than the opportunity in the consumer space because the commercial guys will pay any amount of money. They'll pay whatever. I mean, they'll pay a couple of $100,000 for one of those bots. Whereas the consumer probably, Elon's number of 30,000 is probably what it's going to have to be in order to get the consumer to really, buy very many of them. So, as much as I think it's a phenomenal consumer product when it's finally there, Tom was, it was like one of the worst interviews I've ever seen with him. He was completely wrong on so many things. But anyway, that was the one he was the most wrong on. But yeah,
Mm.
the future of Optimus is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Manufacturers, our value on Optimus is that it's worth at least 400,000 in present value to a manufacturer to be able to use like over the course of 5 years.
Right.
Um, so there's no reason Tesla would need to sell it for less than 250.
I hope
Um,
that. I hope they only rent them. I want them to rent them for
yeah,
70,000 a year would be a good number. I don't really care if it's 30 or 40 or 50, but the number that makes sense to me as a manufacturer, 70,000 a year. If I've got even 3 shifts, that 70,000 is totally covered.
yeah,
Even 2 shifts. If I got one shift, it might be dicey depending on which kind of a worker I'm going to replace with it. But I think probably at 70,000, I would still have bought them for a $20 an hour employee or rented one instead of the $20 hour employee. So yeah, I mean, but when it gets to 3 and 4 shifts, the numbers are crazy, like you just said. So your
yeah.
number's 400,000 over 5 years. That's interesting.
Yeah, and there's no reason the Tesla bot should need to be replaced after 5 years.
Probably not. No.
I've talked with Scott Walter, and with these electric drives that they use, these electric drives last more than 10 years. Um, so, probably the value of an Optimus is even higher than that because it wouldn't suddenly need to be replaced after 5 years.
Yeah, and if you have to replace a part, you might have to replace a part. It would seem to me that you could take, the entire arm comes off and you well, actually, I think it's now here. So the arm comes off and you put on a new arm if there's really something. I
Yeah.
don't, and besides, the same gentleman, wherever he is, Scott, wherever you are, it's time to come back now. Scott,
Yeah.
Scott and I worked on this so hard. I mean, we spent hours and hours on it. We couldn't come up with how it's going to cost them more than 6,000 to build the thing.
Yeah, it should be easily less than 10 grand
Right.
for them to build the Optimus. They'll
Yeah.
scale up the making of the actuators. I think that's the really expensive
Right.
piece. And you build that to great scale, and the cost per actuator just
Goes down, down, down.
way down. Yeah, so what I think margin and options can make sense with a small piece of the portfolio. People just need to be careful, and we might see some volatility ahead for Bitcoin and tech stocks because people use margin and options for those.
Both.
Yeah.
So now Larry says never use margin, but you're saying sometimes in small amounts you're okay with it.
Yeah, so just think if you use a little margin when the stock was 150 a share. Yeah, maybe Tesla could have gone down to 75 from there, but um when sentiment is very negative, I don't think it's a terrible idea to use a little margin to express your view that the sentiment's way too low, or to do something with some options.
So there
There's,
was the,
you're definitely adding risk though,
yes,
but
you are. Yeah.
most people like to add shares when the stock is lower. So when you're adding shares, you're adding risk.
Risk. Absolutely. Right. Okay, so somewhere last night there was two, I guess yesterday, there were two attacks in two of the Sin cities in America. So I don't know whether that was the plan. It was to hit Las Vegas and New Orleans, but those are
Mhm.
those are the two. I don't know, San Francisco got left out somehow. But anyway, so you got these two Sin cities hit with terrorist acts. And
Mhm.
one of them impacted Tesla, or at least it impacted the Tesla community because
Right.
we were kind of upset by it. So take me through it.
Yeah, so there was a Cybertruck used in the attack in Las Vegas. It was loaded up with fireworks and allegedly some type of fuel. I don't know if it's fuel oil or propane tanks or whatever. And it went off, and you see this big explosion. It exploded upward, so it went through the ceiling of the Cybertruck. Um, but you see pictures of the Cybertruck afterward, after they put out the fire, and the shell of the Cybertruck is still there, largely intact. Um, and Tesla claims that the battery never caught fire of the Cybertruck, which is a big testament to things. Um, it's interesting they use the Cybertruck, but it really backfired on the perpetrators of this attack.
Because it didn't blow up the way that
Yeah.
they were planning.
And
There's a
as Matt
tremendous
Smith said, like if you're trying to um, do something like to harm your family or to do a terrorism attack, like Tesla is not the vehicle you want to use. They're the safest vehicles on the road. A couple of years ago, there was a man who he's just dealing with anger issues, and he drove his family off a cliff in California, literally 100-foot cliff, and
right right down the street from where I used to live. It's actually kind of a famous place for people to run their cars off the Pacific Palisades onto Pacific Coast Highway. And yeah, but go ahead, tell the story.
yeah, and no one died from it. The man basically tried to greatly harm his family in a permanent way.
Yes.
I don't want your video to get marked, so I'm being a little
Ah,
coy here. And I think no one even went to the hospital.
oh,
Um,
don't remember that part. Well,
yeah,
I'll have to fact check you on that one.
there was no. I don't even think there were any like back injuries or anything
Oh
from it.
wow. Oh wow. Oh,
Um, so yeah, and the reason why Tesla people got upset with the headlines of this Vegas event that happened was that there were outlets that said that the Cybertruck just exploded. The Cybertruck explodes out of outside of Trump Hotel or whatever, and just leaving out the whole terrorism aspect to it. Um,
if it was
and
any other
it
brand,
really tarnishes the brand because there's a lot of people who just read headlines, and so they'll assume that the Cybertruck just did it on its own.
yeah, the next party you go to, somebody will come up and they'll say, "Hey, I heard about that Cybertruck exploding. What's with your?" I actually got a text last night from one of my ex-cousin-in-laws, and
Mhm.
because he and I had just talked about Tesla a few days ago, and he is an ICE car guy through and through, and so he sent me the headline right away. He wanted to
Wow.
show me, see, look at your car here. Look what happened.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
lot of people who just rely on headlines. It's terrible, and they become brainwashed that way.
so the headlines were, you're usually on a headline, you're trying, every word matters, and
Hmm.
almost every single one of these headlines was Tesla Cybertruck explodes. So they didn't, they used every keyword they could possibly use over and over and over again. It was pretty remarkable. So I heard you, I didn't hear this. You were telling me in the green room that Elon is actually considering suing.
He seems receptive to the idea. He said, maybe it's time for Tesla to begin to take action on some of these headlines.
Yeah, it is industrial sabotage is what it really
Mm.
boils down to. You
Yeah,
can sue. You can sue for
that
something.
is harm to the Tesla brand.
Yes, you can. It is perfectly a legitimate deal to sue somebody over a purposeful attempt to hurt your company, to hurt
Mm.
the value of your company. So I don't know if you can win against the newspaper in a situation like that, but I mean, these don't seem. The hard part for me was, yeah, last night when the news was fresh and you're putting it up on the internet.
Mhm.
Could you possibly have gotten it wrong for the first 5 minutes, the first 10 minutes, first half hour? Yeah, maybe so. That's kind of what it looked like. But this morning, there was brand new stories. There
Yeah.
were brand new articles this morning that were headlined the same way. I just
And,
don't.
and one of these notorious outlets is gets a lot of their advertising dollars from Legacy Auto, especially German Legacy Auto.
See.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I know that I saw a lot of NBC headlines. I saw a lot of CNN headlines. I don't mind calling them out.
Hmm.
So those were two of the ones that I saw over and over again. I mean, there's
Yeah,
some of
I'm speaking. I don't want to say their name, but I should just so people can look as Business Insider.
oh,
Uh, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I almost don't even look at their stories anymore. They're so bad. I do from
Mhm.
time to time. Some of their interviews are still good, so I will source those. But most of Business Insider articles are pretty pathetic.
Mhm.
And I'm perfectly willing to say that over and over again. I've said it
Yeah.
before. This is not the first time I've ever said it. All right, so that's a possibility. That'd be fun. It's one of the things about having Elon's kind of money is
Yeah.
he can have some of these things just as amusement, even though it's maybe the right thing to do. Maybe sometimes you would walk away from it if you didn't have like, gobs and gobs of dough to throw at something in order to see if you could make it stick.
Mhm.
So, your own experience recently driving the FSD? I know that by now it's well, actually, there was you had another uptick, didn't you? Didn't 13 get another?
Yeah, I did get the latest version of version 13 that's gone wide, and it's very good. I used it to drive to the airport. It did want to take a wrong exit on the highway, but I still haven't had any safety critical disengagements. I did ask on X if other people have, and um, a, a lot of people shared things that were not safety critical, and I defined it in a very specific way, like
Right,
where you're having to disengage to stop an accident from happening,
right,
like within the next half second or so.
right.
Um, and um, a lot of the examples that were given were not, according to
Yeah.
my definition. I'm like, read my definition. Um, I am hearing that the car is still going sometimes in the opposing lane of traffic.
Oh,
So they're going on in the wrong way.
this would be
Um,
bad. This is not good.
yeah, that's not good. So that you need to fix that. Um, I did hear one instance where it did pull out. It did want to pull out at a red light, and um, it the person had to disengage to stop it from getting T-boned. But there's very limited. safety critical disengagements that I'm hearing about. So
I
it
heard,
seems to be greatly reduced.
yeah, I did hear.
I haven't had one yet.
I think I saw one where it went down the wrong way down a one-way street.
Mhm.
And I thought to myself, I've never done that in my entire life. Oh, yes, I
Yeah.
have.
I I've done that at least two times in my life, if not three or four.
Yes.
Yeah, people should disengage right away if they know it's doing that, to stop it, because it's definitely not safe. And it's better to disengage right away so then Tesla can maybe get your voice node and train their system on what it did wrong. But I'm very encouraged by how good it is. It seems to be already for the AI 3 cars, and I'm hopeful that many people who own an AI 3 car that was made like 22 or earlier, that they get their hands on it. There's at least 1 million AI 3 cars in the US.
Right.
And so for people to get their hands on the latest software, I think will be very meaningful.
Yeah.
We're getting close to the a real Chat GPT moment
Chat GPS. Yes, the real thing.
for Tesla, where people are showing it off to friends and family, and it's just really, really good.
Yeah, yeah. I may have asked you this before, but my claim is that Elon's 10 to 30% increase in unit sales, vehicle sales. That was another thing that Tom Narayan said. He said they haven't had a new car in 4 years.
Mhm.
And I thought, wait a minute. Wait a minute. What is a Cybertruck? I know it's not a car. And then there was some kind of cab that was announced. I don't know. Anyway, but so Elon has said that he's only expecting, we should expect a 20 to 30% increase in overall vehicle sales next year. My claim is that if we get that, he's not counting unsupervised unsupervised driving. That once the announcement is made, once Elon rides around town in the back seat or says that Tesla will cover the insurance, or cover the liability, some kind of a signal of that nature, and that the product is no longer requiring supervision, that the car sales are just going to go crazy.
Yeah, the better it gets, the more Tesla should be sold, for FSD reasons. Um, it's in, incredibly good, and I think um, it'll start to take off now. Where even if you're nerdy, you're not needing to apologize for it. Whenever I give people a ride in version 13, what I do is I put them in the driver's seat and I let them get used to the car a little bit. And then I set a destination and have them turn on the self-driving system. And the reason I do that is because generally they're not going to need to disengage or intervene.
Right.
And to be in the driver's seat is just much more impactful.
Right.
So I think as that begins to happen and people really begin to experience this new version, I do think it'll be meaningful for people. I
Uh,
agree there.
anything else on your mind today about the economy, Tesla, the stock market, Tesla stock? Those are the things we cover on this
Mhm.
channel. Anything about, hey, what about
Can
your
I
own?
share some New Year's thoughts?
Absolutely. New Year's
Yeah.
thoughts. Absolutely. Cool.
Yeah. So I was at Disney today, and there's some people there who are probably enjoying Disney because it's their last year here on Earth. They're going to die sometime this year. And there might be a lot of people listening to this video who think, 2025 is just going to be another year. Why can't we make it our best year ever or make it a really great year? There's 100 people who died today in a car accident, and probably at least 500 people who are seriously maimed in a car accident in a life-altering way. so just really encourage people to um, think a little deeper. And I'm incredibly thankful for my family and being alive at this time, and having Matt Smith, working with him, having the great team at my business, but also um, you know being here on air with you every week. It's a lot of fun, and I think I'm just going to encourage myself to just really, this is more of a note to myself, to really cherish the time and use it wisely.
What is one of those sayings that doesn't get talked about as much as some of the others is that as you conclude the day, you look back over the day and say, did I make good use of this day?
Mhm.
And you do that about 20 days in a row, and somehow it starts to have its own power.
Mhm. Yeah, I think those are wise words to live by.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Well, in that case, I will do the numbers without you.
All
So
right, take care.
I'll let you
Good to do
go. It's
the
been great
numbers.
having you, though. You'll come
Awesome.
back next week, right?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. We'll see you next Wednesday,
See ya.
Thursday, whatever day. What's wrong with me? Yeah, he's on Thursday. It gets confusing when we have these days off in the middle of the week every week. And now next week we got Thursday off, and the week after that, I guess we get Monday off, something like that. Yeah, so many days off. All right. But I don't get any of those days off. What's going on? All right. So what do we have today? We had Tesla down $24.56, ending at 379.28. And in the after hours, up $3.69. So we're back all the way up to 382, almost 383. And that is almost at the end of regular after hours. And now, of course, now you have Robinhood, which continues all night. So if you want to watch it all night, you can. The Dow Jones down 151 after being up strongly this morning. Everybody, it looked like it was going to be a green day, but it ended up down 151. Nasdaq, same thing, ended up down 30, even though it tried to come back at the end. S&P, same thing, ended up down 13. The Magnificent Seven was mostly up, except for Microsoft and Apple. They were also down again, trying to come back at the end of the day, and everything in relatively small numbers. Although Meta was up 13 for the day, Nvidia up 4, so those are pretty strong. And Apple was down 6, so you see it wasn't just Tesla today. The Cathie Woods were all up today. All right, and that would, of course, you would guess, all right, that the bonds might have been going down a bit, and they did a bit, but we're still, even with a 1.2 in the after hour or the pre-market, even though the bonds continue down another, the 10-year down another 1.2, we're still looking at 4.563. So not really close to 4.5 even yet. And then on the 2-year, the 2-year we have, just barely down 0.3 in the pre-market, and the 1 month up actually 5.4 basis points. So the shortest of the shorts, the 1 month is up quite substantially. Not sure why that would be. Maybe there was an auction today or something that I wasn't paying attention to. The oil market unchanged in the pre-market, but the uh, the Texas Intermediate at $73 and Brent almost 76. Natural gas still sitting around 365, down a tiny bit in the pre-market. Gold continues up all the way to 2,672 now. So it's having quite a run as the stock market has been going down. Gold has been going up. Silver is back to exactly 30 as I'm looking at it right now, up 0.33 in the pre-market, and copper still sitting above 4 at $4.03. You've got the dollar 2-year highs as markets brace for the Trump return. It says that's the headline. I'm reading you the headline. We have Bitcoin continuing up also, up 2,200 so far today at 96.7. So looking like it might take another run at 100,000. And the pre-market in equities for tomorrow morning, which were negative when I looked even 40 minutes ago, those are now, was that 40 minutes ago? 50 minutes ago, they were negative. They're actually positive now. You got the Dow up 49 or 0.11. You got S&P up 11 or 0.19 and NASDAQ up 63 or 0.31. All right, so what's happening later tonight? Well, you got Cern Basher, and you know it's going to be fabulous. All you got to do is say his name, Cern Basher. 7:45 California time is when that'll be on. So hit like, subscribe, notify so that you're reminded of that. Normal programming tomorrow, Larry Goldberg, and I think we're going to have Phil Basel. Yeah, I'm 99% sure, unless the creek rises, that we'll have Phil Basel on tomorrow night. Phil's always fun. He's got so much content that I told him I think there's 10 shows worth of content in what he just showed me. So we'll pick some of that and try to keep it under an hour. So that'll be on tomorrow night. So for all those reasons, hit notify. And then again, we've had quite a few people joining Patreon. Maybe they made New Year's resolutions that it was time to give Randy $3, $5, $10 a month because this stuff that he does all day long helps. Maybe it's helping you a little bit in making some of your decisions with regard to your finances. If it's helping at all, on balance, hey, maybe it's hurting you and helping you. Think it through. If it's worth $3, $5, or $10, it would be lovely to have a few more people. Oh, you know what? And I'm getting lots of orders for Cybertruck bottle openers. I am really surprised. I shipped 3 orders out this morning. So maybe that's a way you can support the channel. I still got lots in stock, especially camos. Nobody wants the camouflage anymore. What's wrong with the camouflage? If you want a camouflage, okay, I'm going to do a deal right now on camouflage. Even one camouflage is $20. Whereas if you buy 1 sterling, that's 25. So there you go. If you want to buy a single unit, you only want 1, then, or if you want 2, I would give you 2 for 40. That would still be a deal on the camouflage. So I'm making that deal only to you guys, the ones who stayed till the end. Pass it along. Hey, it's been great as always talking to you.